There's your momentum swing. Mexico just ticked up to a 0.47, 0.48 market and win. Probe nudged higher with bid depth swelling. Buyers are pressing like it's the last 10 minutes. The risk is that big 0.49 supply still stands like a packed penalty box, but Korea isn't getting love and the drawbook is Korea win price just slid and bid depth collapsed. Capitulation vibes. Can you frame this like a team losing belief after conceding momentum? And what in-match narrative usually triggers that?
Absolutely, that's the classic one. Goal too many moment, heads drop, the press goes half a yard late, and suddenly every clearance comes straight back like a bad boomerang. It's usually triggered by a sucker punch concession or a VAR gut punch, and belief drains out of the stadium in seconds.
Korea's getting a tiny bounce in bid depth, but it's still a one-sided book, tons of supply overhead and not much conviction underneath. Mexico is still the favorite, but that bid stack thinned, so the rally is losing a bit of legs, unless fresh buyers step in. Draw stays range-bound, like both teams happy to pass it around midfield. Big sentiment shock, Frost Rays doubled down, bearish Korea to $3, 0 megabytes notional market, treating Korea like a red card moment. Can you riff on how crowd psychology shifts when a star punter fades a team this hard?
Oh, that's a superstar boo at his own side. From the VIP box, once the crowd sees a big name fade them, doubt spreads like a wave and the noise turns nervous. Suddenly, every touch feels heavier, and the opposition smells fear like blood in the water.
Mexico's still priced like the favorite, but that bid depth just leaked again. Support at 0.47 is getting less crowded, so any bad headline, and it can slip a tick fast. Korea's basically stuck in the relegation zone with heavy offers overhead, and the draw book is quietly getting heavier on the sell side. Korea just ticked down a notch, auto pad a piece, and now the bid depths shrink. So the market's basically saying, we're not buying the comeback. Mexico's still holding 0.47, 0.48, but that support keeps thinning, which makes it a bit more slippery. If sellers press. This feels like late game clock management. Mexico's bid depth just firmed up again, so the favorites got a bit more footing at 2i. Buyers are stepping back in after that wobble. Korea is still pinned under a massive 0.21 sell wall, so any rally attempt looks like a shot straight into the keeper's gloves. Draw is basically dead even on depth, classic chop. Mexico's cushion just thinned again. Bid depth dropped, while the offer stack is still chunky, so upside feels like running into a packed midfield. Korea's ask wall eased a bit, but it's still lopsided, meaning any bounce is more dead cat than comeback. Draw stays range bound at 0.30, 0.31.
Yeah, that's like the floodlights flicker and half the crowd bolts for the exits. Suddenly the atmosphere vanishes and the game feels hollow. When liquidity gets yanked, it's panic ball. Nobody wants to commit. Everyone just hooks it long in hopes.
Order book liquidity just collapsed across all outcomes. Bid depth fell off a cliff and weird 0.99 ask walls popped up on draw and Korea. Feels like a stoppage in play. Market makers pulled quote spreads about to get jumpy. Can you riff on that? Crowd goes quiet. Momentum shift.
Spot on. This is the referee blowing prolonged stoppage and the whole stadium goes eerily quiet. Everyone waiting for the next flashpoint. With the makers stepping back, it's end-to-end chaos. One shove and the price can tumble like a sloppy back pass.
Order book liquidity just evaporated across all three outcomes. Bid depth collapsed and we're seeing weird 0.99, 0.01 levels. Feels like a halt reset or market makers pulled quotes. Can you frame this like a momentum swing crowd leaving the stadium and what it means for price gaps?
Exactly. It's like the final whistle's about to go and the crowd streams out, leaving this hollow echo where the atmosphere used to be. When the stand's empty, every shout carries far. The same here, tiny orders can punch huge gaps, and the scoreline on the screen can flip in a heartbeat.
Liquidity just fell off a cliff across the board. This is a thin book now, so one decent market order can move price like a deflection goal. Mexico still has the cleanest two-way market, but even there, the bids are light versus offers, so downside air pockets are real. Those 0.99 asks look like place. We're seeing a little drift away from Mexico, but as ticks down, and the draw nudges up. Classic favorite losing momentum vibe. The headline is Frostry is pressing the Korea fade even harder, and with Mexico bid depth thin, any surprise swing could gap prices fast like a counterattack. Korea just caught a little bit of a tick and win, prob nudging higher while Mexico's edge keeps leaking, so sentiment's rotating away from the favorite. But look at that, lopsided ask depth on Korea, plenty of supply overhead, like a team that can't get out of its own half. If buyers don't follow through, this pop can fade fast. The Korea uptick just got sold right back. Bid dropped to 0.21 and the win probe slips, so the market's basically saying, nice try, back in your shape. Mexico steadies, but the real story is still the imbalance. Huge offer stacks everywhere, mean rallies can get headed away quickly. Draws the quiet accumulator here holding. Order book just went super thin on bids for draw and Korea bid depth collapsed to Nikkei and $2.09 kilobits, while asks stay huge. Classic liquidity backing.
When one end goes quiet,
Mexico
you can feel the oxygen leave the team. Passes get saved, tackles get late, and the other side starts strutting like they own the pitch. In a vacuum like that, Mexico's low uptick is a breakaway run, one clean move, and it snowballs fast.
Sellers eased off a bit on the draw as depth comes in, but Mexico's still staring at a massive supply stack, so the favorite can't really break away. This feels like a match stuck in midfield. Bids are there, but nobody's finishing. Korea remains range-bound at 0.21, 0.22 with thin conviction on the bid side. Big momentum swing. Korea gets marked down hard to 0.19, 0.20, and the win probe drops, while Mexico firms up to surcashingly. Markets treating this like a one-way counterattack. But liquidity is getting sketchy on Korea, and the draw bid depth collapsed, so any headline can cause a nasty gap. Mexico's getting real sponsorship now. Bid depth jumps hard, and the top bid is sitting right at 0.48, so buyers are planting a flag like they're protecting a 1-0 lead. Korea's still offered a thin on support, so any bounce looks like a dead cat header. Draw stays wide and illiquid, meaning one. Korea just got clipped again, back down to 2 Bayou, even though there's a chunky bid sitting at 0.17, so it's support with a trapdoor underneath. Mexico stays steady at 0.48, 0.49, but that ask depth keeps swelling, meaning upside is still crowded. Draw bids. Mexico's now trading like the clear favorite at 0.50, 0.51 with a big bid parked at Dowayo Will. Classic, closing out the match money. Korea's support thinned out and the top bid slid way down, so confidence that a comeback is fading fast. Draw as death. Ballooning tells you sellers are Draw just slipped a tick to 0.31, 0.32, and you got real bids showing up at 0.29. So the market's quietly pricing less stalemate. Insurance. Mexico holds 0.50, 0.51, but with lighter depth, meaning one decent shove can move it. Mexico just slipped back to 0.49, and the sell side is stacked. Buck Hayes ass, so upside's getting smothered. That weird top bid down to 0.20 screams thin real support, like the defense stepped up and left space behind. Korea and the draw are basically unchanged, so sell walls eased a bit as depth came in across the board, but prices aren't lifting, so buyers still aren't stepping into the tackle. Mexico holds 0.49.50 with a chunky bid at 0.48. That's your near-term support line. Korea stuck at 0.18, 0.19, still Mexico's now that's a tell. Korea suddenly has real size up at 0.17, so someone's stepping in early, like a team pressing higher up the pitch. Mexico's still 0.48, 0.49, but the ass depth ballooned again, so rallies look capped, unless that sell wall cracks. Draw stays steady. Korea's book just got more tradable. Top bid is now right at 0.18 and the best ask is only 0.20. So the spread's tightening like a team finally connecting passes. Mexico and the draw are basically frozen, but liquidity is coming back, which usually means someone's positioning for a swing. If Korea Draw is getting a little more respect at 0.34, 0.35. But the real story is Mexico bid depth collapsing. Buyers stepped off the gas while the sell side stays heavy. Korea's bid stack reappears at 0.17, so there's a floor trying to form, but it's still a thin, jumpy market. Korea just nudged up a tick to 0.19, 0.20, but it's not conviction. It's a thin push with a big wall of supply still sitting overhead. Mexico's still the favorite on price, yet the bid depth is anemic. So that lead feels like a team protecting a 1-0 with tired legs. Draw liquidities. Mexico snaps right back to 0.47, 0.48, and the bid depth refills. Buyers just showed up again, like a team winning the second ball after a wobble. Korea fades back to 0.18, 0.19 with thinner support, so that mini rally looks like it got tackled at midfield. Draw. Draw just ticked up to 0.35, 0.36, with real size showing at 2 sen. Someone's building a proper position, not just nibbling. Mexico's bid depth is the strongest on the board. Again, so the favorite's back in control while Korea's book looks flimsy with that weird bid stack down at 0.05. That draw bid depth just got yanked. Search EK down to CK, so the parking the bus trade is losing defenders fast. Prices haven't moved much yet, but with thinner liquidity, the next push can slip a lot easier. Mexico still looks like the main magnet. Korea's just hanging around for a breakaway. Now Korea ticks up again to 0.20, 0.21, but look at that bid depth collapsing to just 2K. This is a rally on fumes. Mexico's back at 0.47, 0.48 with the cleanest book, and the draw support keeps thinning, so any real shove could move prices fast. Not much on price, but that Mexico wall at 0.47 is still basically intact. Bid depth only shaved a bit, so buyers are holding the line like a back four protecting a 1-goal lead. Drawn Korea books are steady, which screams range bound until someone blinks. Watch that. 047 is the Korea just leaked a tick lower to 018 0.19 and the bid depth got chopped 2-day K. Confidence is fading there. Mexico still pinned at 047 0.48, but that support is eroding. And the draw bids also backed off. So liquidity stepping away. This is the crowd. Whoa! Korea's bid depth just evaporated to under 5K. That's a liquidity rug pull, and it makes the downside feel wide open even if the quote hasn't moved yet. Mexico still got that 047 wall, and its ass stack thinned hard. So the path of least resistance is Mexico holding firm, while Korea looks gassed. Korea's probability slips again, and you got a big sell wall sitting right on Iwani. Classic. Every rally gets headed away setup. Mexico's SOL bid is beefier, but now there's real supply at 0.48 too. So we're in a tight range with sellers leaning on both sides. Feels like a cagey midfield battle, lots of possession. Not much price movement, but the draw bid is still camped at 0.35 with real size markets basically saying nil-nil is live. Korea remains pinned under that 0.19 supply, and Mexico's zone Natsusi support is a bit lighter now, so any shock headline could tip this. Feels like stoppage time nerves. One mistake. Korea's step just thinned a bit, but price still can't get through that 0.19 ceiling, so sentiment's not flipping, just less crowded on the sell side. Mexico's bid stack at 0.47 actually looks healthier now, which keeps the favorites steady. This is one of those games where the crowd's restless, but the scoreboard refuses to. Book just went weird. Top asks jump to 0.99 across, draw Korea, Mexico, while bid stayed near Senalamo PZ. Looks like liquidity pulled and spread blew out. Can you riff on this like a match where both teams suddenly stop pressing and the crowd holds its breath? Leo, the book just went weird. Bess asks jump to 0.99 across, draw Korea, Mexico, while bid stayed normal. Looks like liquidity pulled or a halt-like moment. Can you riff on that? Everyone steps off the pitch vibe and what it means for momentum, crowd psychology. Order book got weird. Top ask levels jumped to 0.99 across outcomes, while best asks stayed tight. Looks like liquidity pulled and only Hail Mary offers left. Can you riff on this like a team parking the bus / time wasting and what it signals about crowd nerves? Leo, we've got Mexico still priced as the favorite, but look at that lopsided ask depth across all three outcomes. There's a wall of sellers overhead. So any rally is going to feel like running into a packed defense. The headline is Froster's absolutely leaning against Korea in size, while Mexico flow is split. Now the drop bid depth just jumped, and the top bid is sitting right at DOI, are stepping up and tightening the spread like a team finally holding possession. Mexico's bid depth also beefed up, but that ask side is still a skyscraper. So breakouts need real follow-through, not just a quick counterattack. Big liquidity rug pull on the bid side. Mexico bid depth collapsing while Korea ticks up to 2-0 is the market basically backing away from the favorite. That's classic late game nerves. Spreads can get fast because there's not much support under price. If momentum flips, buyers rush back in on the draw in Mexico after that scare, but notice where the support is. Draw's real size is down at 0.33. Mexico's down at dough on. This is thin ice near the top. Feels like stoppage time chaos. Prices look stable until one big order turns it into a breakaway. That draw book just got yanked again. Top bid back down at a penny. Tells you the support is mostly ghosts, even if the headline probability says 3.9. Mexico's price is leaking from 0.42 to 0.41, with heavy sell side still looming. So this feels like a crowd getting jittery and hitting the exits. Mexico just got its footing back. Bid depth rebounded hard and the ask wall actually thinned, so the favorite's back in control for now. But the draw book still has that penny bid look, meaning liquidity is skittish, and one sharp move can still flip sentiment fast. Now we've got real structure. Mexico's top bid is up at 0.40 and the draw stacked at 0.34. So buyers are finally showing their hand instead of hiding at a penny. Korea's still a thin book, so any surprise momentum likely expresses through Mexico draw pricing first. Classic midfield control setup. We just saw a rotation. Korea's price ticks down, but the bid depth doubles, and there's real size sitting at due AC. Someone's building a floor. Meanwhile, Mexico and the draw lose that honest top bid support again. So this is like a counterattack forming, while the favorite's midfield goes missing. Leo books just went super thin across all three outcomes. Top bids collapsed into 0.01, while prices still show 0.30.4 at best and 0.40, 0.41. Can you riff on that crowd leaves the stadium moment and how momentum swings when liquidity vanishes?
Absolutely. Amo, when the book goes thin like that, it's like the crowd's filed out and suddenly every shout echoes. One hard tackle of money and the odds can skid 2 yards in a heartbeat because there's no one left to cushion the swing. Momentum turns savage when liquidity disappears.
Liquidity's coming back, but it's still lopsided, as walls are massive across all three outcomes, so rallies can get smothered fast. Korea's bid stack has shifted up from the penny to 0.04, which is a small but meaningful. We're still in this signal while Mexico holds 0.40, 0.41%. Korea's quietly gaining traction. Top bid stepping up to 0.05 is like moving the defensive line higher, showing more confidence. And that Mexico long trimming at 0.40 tells you the crowd's taking profits into the favorite, not pressing the attack. Draw just nudged up to the 0.40, 0.41 band. So the market's pricing a tighter match, even with Mexico still pinned at 0.40, 0.41. But look at those huge ass stacks. This is a game where every rally meets a packed penalty box, so breakouts need real volume, not vibes. That's a real tell. Draw, bid depth just surged, and the top bid jumped up to 0.34. So someone's stepping in with conviction, not just penny lot noise. Mexico slipping to 0.39, 0.40, while Korea stays steady, feels like the favorites losing momentum. Classic late And just like that, liquidity floods back in. Draw in Mexico, bid depth triple digit again. But Mexico's still stuck at 0.38, 0.39. So buyers are willing to pay up. Korea's book looks sturdier with that 0.19 top bid. Like they've got a counterattack loaded if Mexico blinks. Mexico's getting faded again, down to 0.37, 0.38, while Korea's up at 0.21, 0.22. That's the underdog pressing and the favorite coughing up territory. Draw still glued at 0.40, 0.41, so the market's basically calling stalemate risk the base. Draw just took the lead on the tape up to Sir, while Mexico's pinned at 0.37, 0.38. So the market's pricing no winner as the most likely finish. Korea easing back a tick says, this isn't a Korea surge, it's Mexico's skepticism. Classic late game nerves where nobody wants to overcommit. Liquidity just vanished, and Mexico got smacked down to 0.35, 0.36, while Korea firmed to Wanayanabe feels like a momentum swing crowd panic. Can you frame this like a late game shift in pressure? Or a key chance var moment?
Yeah, that's a proper late game tie turn one. Scary moment and suddenly everyone drops 10 yards. Mexico's line wobbling under pressure. Korea's price firming is like a team smelling blood after a VAR scare. Confidence spikes and the next push feels inevitable.
That last snapshot was a full-on liquidity air pocket. Mexico bid depth basically vanished and price slipped to symbol A. Then buyers sprinted back in and stabilized it at 0.36, 0.37. Draw staying firm at 0.41, 0.42, says the crowd still hedging like it's extra time. Nobody wants to. Now that's a real wall draw has size, sitting right on 0.42. So buyers are planting their flag and daring sellers to break it. Korea steady. Mexico still can't attract depth, so the market's basically parking the bus on stalemate and waiting for a catalyst. We're seeing the parking the bus trade get reinforced, drop bid depth just jumped again, and that 0.42 level is getting thicker. So sentiment's leaning to stalemate with real money behind it. Korea ticking down to 0.20, 0.21, while Mexico holds tells you the market's fading the upset and pricing a grind. Mexico's finally getting a proper bid. Stacked big size showing at 0.34 and total depth north of Tote. So downside is getting defended. Even at the top of book stays. 0.36, 0.37. But the draw still has the captain's armband at 0.42 with heavy support. This feels like a cagey midfield. Draw just ticked up to 0.43, 0.44, but the support underneath looks shaky. Top bids oddly down at 2.0C. So this feels like a price lift without a safety net. Mexico's got a cleaner ladder at 0.35. Korea's still pinned at 0.20. So if the draw wobbles, the spillover. Draw is still the crowded trade, and it's holding the line at 0.43 with size. Buyers are basically time wasting in the corner and daring anyone to press. Mexico's bid depth is fading again, so that earlier Mexico or draw rotation is losing steam, while Korea remains a low liquidity punt at 0.20, 0.21. Draw buyers are getting more confident. Top bid size jumps to 197.4K and depth keeps climbing, so the market's leaning into a stalemate script. Mexico's ask wall is thickening fast, which tells you rallies are getting sold into. Korea's still just hanging around at 0.20 like a team parking the bus and hoping for a counter. Draws got marked up a notch to 0.44 for 0.45 with nearly Antioch of bid depth. Classic momentum, like a team-winning midfield and squeezing the game. Korea's book looks weird with that top bid down at 0.07, so liquidity's thin and any shock could gap prices fast. That drop off just got yanked. Top bid showing at 0.01 is basically the liquidity disappearing mid-play, while the 0.45 ask wall still stands. Mexico's the only one with a real bid stack at 0.35, so if anyone's got momentum now, it's Mexico. Korea's bid depth improved, but it's still a thin market. Sellers are loading the bus now. Ask depth balloons across the board, especially Mexico and the draw, so upside is getting crowded out. Korea's Ani offers a brick wall too, which tells you the market's pricing. No drama unless a real catalyst hits. In this setup, breakouts need a clean finish, otherwise it's just churn and fades. Korea just found a second wind bid depth doubles, and that 0.19 level is stacked, even though headline win prob ticks down a hair. Draw stays glued at 0.44, 0.45. But the real tell is Mexico's support, thinning while sellers still camp at 0.37. Feels like late game nerve. Mexico just got a big home crowd behind it. Bid depth jumps and that 0.35 line is stacked with over 600K shares, so dips are getting bought fast. But the other side is still parking the bus with $1 million plus on the ask, so any rally needs real follow through. Draw stays the magnet at 0.45. Draws ask side, just stick and dig in, so that 0.45 is turning into a real ceiling. Market's basically saying, show me a goal before we reprice. Mexico's probability nudges up, but it's still pinned between a strong 0.35 bid wall and that stubborn 0.37 supply. Korea remains boxed in too. Korea just picked up meaningful bid depth. Buyers are stepping in without moving the price, which is usually a loading the spring look. Mexico's still anchored by that 0.35 wall, but the real tell is whether 0.37 supply finally gets chewed through. Draw is steady at 0.45, still the market safe, pass sideways. We just saw bids pull back, draw depth drops hard, and Mexico's cushion thin, so the market's a bit less confident on support. Korea's win prop ticks down to 2-0 even as the ass stack at 0.21 shrinks, which screams nervy, not bullish. This feels like late game legs. One sharp move can Mexico's win probe slips to 3.5, and you can see why. Sellers are stacked heavy above, while the bid wall at 0.35 is thinner than it was. Support's still there, but it's taking hits. Draw and Korea both cleaned up their asset depth, so if momentum flips, they've got more room to run. This is that moment in a match where now we're seeing a little relief rally in the book. Mexico's ask depth comes in and the win probe nudges back to 3.6, so the selling pressure eased. Draw liquidity looks healthier on the bid too, which keeps that 0.44, 0.45 magnet effect alive. Korea's still stuck at Suldaning C, no breakout. Draw offers just thinned out a lot. Ask depth drops, so that 0.45 level is less of a brick wall and more of a swinging gate. Now, greed ticks down a hair in win odds, but the bid side is quietly firming, which tells you dip buyers are still in the match. Mexico's still boxed in decent 0.35 support. Mexico's bid depth just beefed up. Buyers are stacking at 0.35. Like they're protecting a 1-goal lead, so downside looks better defended. But the draw still has that heavy 0.45 supply, meaning any push higher gets met by instant selling. Korea remains a side bet at 0.20. 0.21. Now, the draw sell wall actually eases a bit. As step down to about GDK. So buyer's best sit is a little more breakable. Korea's win odds slipped to 2-0, but the book's still tight, so it's not a panic, just a drift. Mexico stays glued at 0.35, 0.36. We just saw the draw sell pressure creep back up and bid depth slip, so that 0.45 breakout attempt looks like it's lost a bit of steam. Mexico's win, prop ticks down to C tiny, but it tells you sentiments cooling while that 0.36 lid stays firm. Korea's basically unchanged, still priced. That draw wall refilled fast, depth jumps back to about GOELK, so the market just slammed the door on that breakout narrative. Mexico still has a massive supply stack north of OM, so any pop is getting met like a goalkeeper catching crosses all day. Net sellers are back in control, and we're back. Draw pressure eases a touch. Ask depth back under GSE, but it's still a crowded trade at 0.45, so upside is capped unless that wall cracks. Mexico's book looks cleaner with asks holding up at 0.37, which is a subtle "we're not selling cheap" signal. Korea's liquidity thins on the bid side. Order book looks glitchy air, pocket draw, bid ask shifted to 0.45, 0.46, but top level shows 0.04 bid and 0.99 asks. Across outcomes smells like liquidity pulled or market reset. Can you frame this like a momentum swing crowd panic in match terms?
Oh, that's an air pocket ammo. Like the stadium lights flicker and both teams freeze. For a second, nobody's sure if the whistle's gone. When the crowd pulls its noise, the game turns jittery and one random bounce can decide everything.
Order book looks glitchy. Best bid ask normal, but top level shows 0.01, 0.99 across outcomes and depth collapsed. Smells like liquidity pulled or data issue. Can you riff on this? Like a momentum crowd, everyone ran to the sidelines moment, and what it means for in-play psychology?
Spot on. It's like everyone sprinted to the touchline at once, leaving this eerie silence on the pitch while the scoreboard still looks normal. In play that messes with nerves, players start forcing passes, and one rash lunge can flip the whole mood instantly.
Now we've got a real liquidity air pocket. Bids and asks are showing weird far-off levels, which usually screams book reset or someone yanked orders. The headline prices look stable, but execution risk just jumped. It's like playing on a pitch with patches missing. I wait for the inside depth to repopulate before trusting any move. We're seeing the drop up normalize a bit. Top bid back up near 0.44 and bid depth recovering, so that earlier ghost book wobble is fading. But the offers are still stacked weirdly high at 0.99, which tells you real sellers are hiding or pulling liquidity. Korea remains the fragile leg here. Korea book is collapsing. Bid depth cratered while ask ballooned. Feels like crowd sentiment turning and liquidity vanishing. Can you frame this like a team under siege late in a match? One mistake away from conceding?
Yeah, that's siege football. Korea's camped in their own box, and the air's getting thinner with every clearance. When depth craters like that, it's one sloppy touch or bad header, and bang, the net ripples and panic spreads.
Leo, the book just went full injury time chaos. Bid depth collapsed across. Draw Mexico, Korea while asks stay massive. Give us the crowd psychology read. Is this panic hedging or a setup for a sudden momentum swing?
Oh, that's pure injury time. Nerves. Everyone's backing away from the tackle. Nobody wants to be the one caught wrong-footed. Feels like panic hedging more than swagger. But in that vacuum, one clean break can spark a wild, sudden swing.
Leo, the books, doing that late game, everyone drops back thing. Drop probability creeping up, but bid support is super thin, with weird 0.01 top bid prints. Can you riff on how crowd psychology shifts toward a draw when momentum stalls?
Absolutely. When the tempo dies, everyone starts protecting what they've got, and the draw feels like the safe bus parked right in front of goal. Those flimsy 0.01 prints are like half-hearted tackles, lots of bodies back, but nobody committing to winning.
Draw's getting priced up again, but it's on shaky footing. Top bid still showing. That silly 0.01 tells you the real ladder can vanish fast. Korea's bid stack suddenly firming near zero. 17 looks like a quick counterpunch, yet the massive ask wall overhead keeps it a one-way risk if momentum flips.
That's the gut punch moment, like a goal out of nowhere, and the whole stadium tilts toward Mexico in one roar. Wide spreads and vanished bids are the stunned silence on one end, stampede on the other. Everyone chases the news story. Nobody wants to stand in front of it.
Absolutely, Leo. This is pure momentum trading. After a shot goal, Mexico's price gaps up, wall draw, and Korea liquidity evaporate like defenders caught flat-footed. The risk now is slippage and whipsaws because the book's thin and emotions are doing the pricing. Mexico is now trading like it's parking the bus with a 7-4 win line, tight Turin-Civio spread, and the ask depth finally thinning, so buyers are in control. Draw Korea basically relegated to penny bid territory with huge sell walls, meaning any comeback narrative gets priced as a long shot until real bids show up. Mexico is holding that 0.74, 0.75 like a team killing the clock. Tight spread, decent bid depth, and the market's basically saying don't overthink it. Draw and Korea are still thin with towering offers, so any surprise swing would be violent. But right now, the crowd's leaning hard one way. Mexico's still the favorite, but that new sell wall at 0.77 is like a defender stepping up. Price may stall unless buyers keep pressing. Drawn Korea tick up a hair, yet the depth is still paper thin, so any headline swing will move this like a counterattack. Now we're seeing real liquidity flood back in. Mexico bid depth jumps to left to yak, and draw Korea bids thicken too, so the market's stabilizing after the chaos. But those massive ass stacks are still the upper deck crowd leaning on the rail. Upside gets capped unless someone rips through size. That liquidity we saw just vanished again on drawn Korea. Bid depth collapses, so those markets are back to one bad touch, and you're through on gold volatility. Mexico looks healthiest. Bids outweigh asked now, which usually keeps the favorite pinned near the highs, unless a real shock hits. Big rotation here. Draw bid depth explodes and pins at 0.21, so traders are suddenly hedging the stalemate like it's a late equalizer brewing. Mexico is still favored at 0.73, 0.74, but the heavy ass stack says upside is crowded. More protect the lead than go for 4. Mexico's book just got a lot more two-sided bid depth up to 10 COK and asks basically matching it. So we're in a proper tug of war at 0.73, 0.74. Draw stays supported but still faces that giant offer stack. And Korea's thin beads mean any momentum shift, there is still a slip and slide. Mexico's still stuck in that 0.73, 0.74 scrum. But the ask side is starting to lean heavier again. Feels like buyers are running out of legs. Draw liquidity is solid, yet the sell wall overhead keeps it from breaking out, and Korea remains a thin, jumpy side market. That's a clear risk-off flicker. Draw bid depth just fell off a cliff, and Mexico ticks down to 0.72, 0.73. So the market's taking a little air out of the favorite. Korea drifting up a penny is classic cheap upset hedge behavior, like the crowd sensing a counterattack, even if it's still low odds. Draw bids are trying to rebuild, but it's still lopsided. Tons of supply overhead, so any move up gets headed away like a corner kick. Mexico's back to 0.73, 0.74, yet the ask depth is heavier, which screams late game profit taking more than fresh conviction. Leo Mexico still prices heavy favorite, but the order book screaming nervy finish. Mexico bid slips to 0.72, 0.73 with a big sell wall, while draw bids rebuild at 0.21. Can you frame this like a team protecting a lead versus chasing a killer goal?
Yeah, Mexico looked like they're up a goal and suddenly playing keep ball in the corners, but the crowd can smell the nerves. That sell wall is the defender shouting no risk, while the draw money creeping back is the opposition throwing bodies forward for one last punch.
We're seeing the favorite lose some muscle. Mexico bid depth just got cut hard, while the price stays pinned at 0.72, 0.73, so it's a fragile lead. Korea's implied's popping to 8. Is that underdog counterpunch vibe? But liquidity's thin, so it can fade fast. Mexico's price is holding, but the sell side just ballooned over $500,000 on the ask, so upside is getting parked like a bus in the box. Draw is still capped by that massive overhead supply, and Korea stays a low liquidity flyer that can whip around on small orders. Whoa! Bid liquidity just vanished across the board, especially Mexico dropping to a tiny DKA bid depth while the ask stack stays huge so any sell pressure can slice through like a bad backline. This feels like the crowd stepping away from the ball. Spreads can get jumpy fast. Draw just got smacked down a tick and the bid stack looks flimsy while the ask wall is still towering. Nobody wants to be the hero buyer here. Mexico's back at 0.730.74, but with that heavy sell side, it's more protect the lead than go for the second goal. This is classic liquidity drought football. Drop bid depth is basically a puddle, and Korea's not much better, so one decent market order can look like a counterattack. Mexico still leads on price, but with bids thinning and asks still stacked, it's a shaky possession game. Mexico's still priced like the clear favorite, but that ass depth swelling again is a big time wasting in the corner signal. Hard to push higher without real buying. Korea and the draw both have paper-thin bids, so if sentiment flips, the move will be sudden and ugly. Mexico just ticked up to 0.74. 0.75 in bid depth improved. Buyers are back on the pitch, but there's a chunky sell wall sitting right at 0.75. So that's the next resistance. Draw bids firm too, yet the ask side is still a skyscraper, so rallies can stall fast. Mexico's bid depth keeps building. Now you've got real support under 2. So the favorite trade has momentum again. But Korea's ask side just ballooned, which screams no comeback bid, and that 0.75 offer is still the goalkeeper you've got to beat to break higher. Mexico's still holding 0.74, 0.75, but notice the sell side pressure eased a bit. Ask depth dropped, so the path higher is slightly less crowded. Korea remain all air on the offer, meaning the market's basically priced like Mexico or bust, unless a real shock hits. Korea just got marked down a notch. Now Ocon sits lead, while Mexico's support keeps thickening, so the market's leaning even harder into the favorite. The tell is that Giant Korea offer stack at 0.99. Nobody's positioning for a miracle. They're parking the bus and waiting for the whistle. Whoa! Liquidity just vanished on Mexico. Bid depth collapsed and price slipped to 0.73, 0.74. That's a momentum stall. Feels like the crowd stepped away from the touchline, so any decent sell can knock this around quickly. Keep an eye on whether bids reload or this turns into a fast pullback. And just like that, Mexico liquidity snaps back OCCC sequel again with bid depth rebuilt, so that dip looks more like a quick shakeout than a trend change. Still, the offer side is heavy across the board, so upside needs real buying, not just empty stands. Mexico is still the clear favorite, but the big change is the sell wall fitting. As depth is way lighter now, so one strong buy wave could squeeze this higher fast. Korea ticking back to 6 is like a counterattack that looks scary on TV, but the book says it's mostly noise. Draw bids just stepped up, best bid up to Uzi. So someone's finally paying for the scrappy 101 script. Mexico still pinned at 0.74, 0.75. But that 0.76 offer stack is the next defender to beat if momentum turns into a real breakaway. That drop pop faded fast back to 0.20, 0.21, with the bid sitting way down at 201, so it was a head fake, not a regime change. Mexico's still steady at 0.74, 0.75, but that chunky 0.76 offer is basically the next line of defense. Mexico just nudged up a tick to 0.75, 0.76, and more importantly, bid depth jumped. Buyers are finally showing up with real size. That's a classic second half push setup. If they chew through the nearby offers, this can grind higher, but it's still a crowded favorite. Now, Mexico's getting pricier and heavier. Bid depth is ballooning, so the crowd's leaning into the favorite like it's protecting a 1-goal lead. But the draw just tightened to 0.19, 0.20, so don't ignore that late equalizer risk. If Mexico can't finish, chances. Mexico's drifting higher again to 0.76, 0.77, but notice the ass side thickening. More people are fading the favorite up here, like defenders dropping deeper to protect the box. Draw and Korea both firming a touch on the offer side too, so volatility's rising even if the headline odds don't move much. Draws got a little cheaper at 0.18, 0.19, but the bid depth is swelling. Someone's quietly building a position, like they're setting up a late corner routine. Mexico's still stuck at 0.76. 0.77 with lighter bids, so the favorite's momentum is slowing, even if the scoreline odds look comfy. Draw spreads out to 0.18, 0.20. So liquidity's getting a bit jumpy. Buyers are there, but they're not chasing. Mexico's still pinned at 0.76, 0.77, while the offer stack rebuilds, which screams favorite fatigue and opens the door for a sudden swing if any live catalyst hits. This book just flipped into a wild momentum swing. Draw in Korea bid depth collapsed, while Mexico's ask depth evaporated and price ticked up. Feels like a sudden goal just happened. Reaction. Can you frame this like a crowd surge a turning point moment?
That's the stadium roar moment. One flash of brilliance and everyone stampedes to the new story, leaving the old prices abandoned like empty seats. When drawn, Korea's support vanished while Mexico offers disappear. It's like defenders frozen and the crowd already celebrating before the replay ends.
Absolutely, Leo. That's pure momentum trading. The Mexico books suddenly thin on the sell side, while draw Korea bids evaporate so price can gap on air. It's like a counterattack, where one touch beats three defenders and the market's already sprinting to the corner flag. Now we're seeing the snapback draw, ticks down to 0.17, 0.18, and Korea liquidity refills, while Mexico's ask wall is back in force. Mexique on the offer side. That's the market resetting its defensive shape after the breakaway, and it makes chasing Mexico up here a tougher run. This is a real liquidity air pocket. Mexico's bid depth collapses to just $12.09 kilobits, while the ask stack stays heavy, so any sell pressure can knock the favor back fast. Meanwhile, draw pops to 2-0 but with tiny bids, more like a headline move than real conviction. Mexico support just came back, bid depth jumps to about NER2 and NUY. Inspired me. Draw's got a real bid now at 0.17, but the ask side is still a skyscraper. So upside looks capped unless momentum returns. Mexico's book looks healthier now. Bid depth up over Tokay and the ask side has thinned a lot, so the favorites, back in control and volatility, should cool. Draw and Korea still feel like bench players, big offers, light row support, so any pop there is fragile. Korea just got marked down a notch. O1C inspired me. Mexico's still 0.77, 0.78, but that offer stacks swelled again. Like a team protecting a one-goal lead. Steady, but not sprinting higher. Mexico nudges up to 7.8, but it's not a clean breakout. There's a big wall sitting right on 0.78, so buyers have to win that midfield battle to push higher. Korea stays pinned at 3-4 cents with heavy offers, so the comeback narrative is basically parked. Mexico's still priced like the clear favorite, but bid depth just slipped under Tokay, while the sell wall at 0.78 keeps getting thicker. This is a grind, not a runaway. And look at the flow. Swiss Stony leaning hard, bearish Korea at rich prices. That's crowd psychology screaming, no upset. Mexico's price is holding, but the ask depth keeps ballooning, nearly beer speed, K, now. So rallies are getting headed away like crosses into a packed box. Korea's bid depth ticked up a touch, but at 3-4 cents, it's still a long shot ticket with a lot of sellers leaning on it. Draw liquidity just got uglier. Ask depth jumps to about core, quate, and that 0.20 level is stacked. So the market's basically saying no extra time drama. Mexico holds 0.77, 0.78 with decent bids, but until that 0.78 wall clears, it's more possession than goals. Mexico's book actually looks a bit healthier. Bid depth up over Tokay and the 0.78 sell wall thinned, so the favorites got a clearer lane if buyers press. Draw is still a brick wall of offers near 0.20, so the market's fading the stalemate pretty aggressively. order book just flipped into a momentum moment. Mexico ticks up to 0.78, 0.79, with bid depth surging to Polymarket.
That's
While
the
draw
stadium
Korea's show
rising
weird,
as
huge
the
offer
leaders slam the door.
stacks up at
Mexico money
Ochu,
piling in like
feels like
defenders
crowd
crowding
saying
the
no
box,
miracle in parking
clearing
set orders.
everything first
Can you
time.
riff on the
Those
psychology?
silly 0.99 stacks are the desperate long shots from the halfway line. Technically possible, but the crowd's already singing. The winner, home.
Mexico just pushed up to 0.79, 0.80, and that's the market leaning harder into the favorite, even as bid depth cools a bit from the spike. Korea's ask depth exploding towards CDK is basically a bus parked in front of any upset narrative. Tons of supply, no belief. Mexico still pinned at 0.79, 0.80, but look at that. As depth collapsing to 180 and the 0.80 top offer shrinking. If buyers show up, this can pop like a late counterattack. Draw bid, sliding down to 0. 0.2 is basically the crowd leading early. Nobody wants to stalemate risk. Mexico ticking up again to 0.80, 0.81. Is the market tightening the noose? Favorite money's in control, even if bid depth is a touch lighter. Korea at 0, 0.3, 0.03, with almost no real bids, is pure depth ball possession. Looks stable, but there's zero attacking threat behind it. Now you've got Mexico still at 0.80, 0.81, but that ass depth ballooning to VC. Someone just lined up a big defensive wall at 0.81, so upside gets tougher without fresh buying. Korea drifting down to a 2 handle tells you the upset trade is basically getting relegated. Mexico's now 0.81, 0.82. But the real story is liquidity vanishing on drop. And Korea bid depth is basically pocket change, so any hit can gap prices fast. And that Mexico top ask jumping out to 0.91 feels like a cheeky sell. Wall way upfield, daring buyers to chase. Mexico's probability nudging up to 8.2 while staying 0. 81, 0.82 tells you the market's comfortable with the favorite, but not willing to pay up yet. Korea's still a ghost town on bids, so any upset headline would rip through this book like a counterpunch nobody saw coming. Big change on the draw. Book bits just showed up at 0.15 with real size, so the market's suddenly pricing a bit more stalemate insurance. Mexico still the heavy favorite at 0.81, 0.82, but that chunky offer stack says upside is a grind, not a sprint. That's a momentum swing. Mexico slips back to 8 and the bid depth collapses, so the favorite support is suddenly thin. If sellers press, Korea ticking up to 0, 0.3 looks small, but in a shallow book it's like one good counterattack. Price can move fast on very little. Draw. Just firmed to 0, 17.0.18 with a lot more bid depth. So traders are hedging the stuck at 0-0 script a bit harder. Mexico's bid support refill, but that heavy ass stack keeps it like a team protecting a 1-goal lead. Control, not fireworks. Mexico's back up to A2 and the bid depth is stacked. Now buyers are stepping in like a team, pinning the opponent in their own half. But look at that top. Ask way out of 0.97, it's a clear take profit line. So upside may be capped unless we get a real catalyst. Korea is now locked at Do-Ong.Wen. No spread, but it screams no conviction. Just tiny price discovery in a market with a mountain of offers above. Mexico's still 8-1 with big bid depth, so the favorites got a solid backline. The draw stays the main hedge at 0.16, 0.17. Now the draw is getting marked up to 0.18, 0.19, even as bid depth thins. Classic price up, support down, which can snap back fast. Mexico's probability reads 8.2, but the bid-ask slid to 0.79, 0.80. So someone's fading the favorite like a crowd getting nervous after a missed sitter. Draw snaps back to 0.16, 0.17, but that top bid sitting way down at 0.06 tells you the real support is deep. If it breaks, it's an elevator. Mexico's back to a clean 0.81, 0.82 with strong depth, so the favorite's still controlling possession while Korea stays pinned at 0. Draw cools back to 1.6 and the bid stack returns at toe low, so that earlier trapdoor look is gone and liquidity's back in the midfield. Mexico holds 0.81, 0.82, but that big offer parked at 0.94 is the take profit wall if the crowd tries to run it up. That drop book is getting sketchy again. Best price holds at 0.16, 0.17, but the top bid is back down at 0.01, so the visible support is basically a mirage. Mexico stays steady at 0.81, 0.82, yet the offers stack up at 0.99. And there goes the draw, support again. Top bid drops back to 0.01 and bid depth shrinks, so that 0.15, 0.16 is basically a painted line on the pitch. Mexico still holds 0.82, 0.83 with better balance, so the market's saying favorite, steady, chaos, only in the draw. Draw still a headline, price with no real muscle behind it. Top bid sitting at 001 means one decent sell and it slips fast. Mexico's the opposite. Probability holds at 8.3, but as depth is swelling, so buyers may need a clean goal to push it higher. Mexico's drifting more, sure thing, with 804 and a clean step up to 083 0.804. But that big 099 offer stack is basically the exit door everyone's staring at. Draw stays flimsy, top bid's still down at ODOE, so any real pressure, and it's a quick slide, not a grind. Liquidity just vanished. Mexico bid depth collapses to about C2K and the draws down near GK, so this market can gap like a bad back pass. Price hasn't moved much, but with thin books, the next big order is the striker in open space. It decides the score line fast. Now we got a real tail draw. Price softens to 0.14, 0.15, and Korea's bid slips to on pull. Markets basically fading the upset and the stalemate at the same time. Mexico stays firm at 0.83.84 with healthier depth like the favorite, just controlling possession and killing the clock. Mexico just got another uptick to 0.84, 0.85, while Korea is basically pinned at a penny. This is the market parking the bus on the underdog. The draw book looks especially sketchy with that top bid back at 0.01, so any late drama could whip prices around even if the probability barely budges. Mexico's now 0.85, 0.86, and that's the favorite, getting the late penalty call from the crowd. Draw keeps leaking to 0.13, 0.14, and Korea's stuck at a penny. So the market's pricing a pretty one-way finish unless something wild flips momentum. Bounce and draw probability, but the price can't lift. Still stuck at 0. 13, 0.14 with a mountain of asks. So that's more noise than signal. Mexico holds 0.85, 0.86, and the underdog still a penny stock, meaning sentiment is firmly game management by the favorite. Lille, draw, bid depth just collapsed under UIK, while Mexico's ask depth got vacuumed to Seike and price ticked up to Zobaspi Pasubi. Classic late game momentum tilt setup. Can you frame this like a match where the crowd senses a winner and liquidity disappears?
Spot on. This is the moment the crowd stops whispering and starts roaring, and suddenly nobody wants to stand in front of the shot. The draw money vanishing is like the away end going quiet, while Mexico's price climbing feels like a team smelling blood and sprinting for the clincher.
Draw just got smacked down to 0.12, 0.13, and that bid depth is thin, one decent market order, and it's slipping on the turf. Mexico still priced like the team protecting a one-goal lead at 0.86, 0.87, while Korea is stuck at 0.01 with sellers stacked to the sky. That draw book just got a real bid attitude. Someone's finally stepping in, instead of leaving it at the 0.01 ghost. Liquidity. Mexico's still steady at 0.86, 0.87. But with the draw tightening to 0.12, 0.13, you can feel a little late game nerves creeping in. Mexico just ticked up to Basi Basil. Markets leaning even harder into the favorite, like they've pinned Korea in their own half. The draw bid support vanished back to the 001 abyss, and Korea's bid depth finally perked up a bit. But it's still a penny with a skyscraper of sellers overhead. Big momentum swing. Mexico price just dumped from 0.88 to 0.73, while draw ripped to 0.24, 0.26, and Korea up to 0.03. Can you frame this like a match turning point? Late equalizer vibes, crowd psychology, game state shift.
Oh, that's a gut punch. Swing like Mexico just conceded a late equalizer, and the whole stadium flips from party to panic in one heartbeat. The draw surging as the belief flooding back, and Korea's little uptick is that anything can happen. Whisper turning into a roar.
That draw spike just got faded hard. Back to 0.15, 0.16, and the bid depth is basically a puddle, so any sell pressure can push it around. Mexico reclaims control at 0.84, 0.85, and Korea still pinned at a penny with that massive sell wall like a bus parked in front of goal. Draws back to 1.12 cents, but notice the bid depth rebuild, and there's real interest sitting around them. Someone's trying to put a floor in. Mexico holds 0.86, 0.87. So the favorite's still in control, but that earlier volatility tells you this crowd can overreact to any near miss. Mexico's back up at 0.87, 0.88, and the bid depth is swelling. Buyers are pressing like they're protecting a one-goal lead with possession. Draw is stuck at 0, 11, 0.12, but it's all air on the offer side. So one headline moment, and it can whip again. Korea's still a penny trade. Korea just got priced at basically 0 on the bid. Oh, Onibid is the market saying we're not even spotting them a consolation goal. Mexico stays firm at 0.87, 0.88, but the draw bid depth is thinning again. So that 112% is fragile if sellers lean on it. Mexico's creeping higher to 0.80, 8.89, but the bid depth is leaking. This is a favorite that's winning on the scoreboard, not dominating the tape. Draw, liquidity is drying up on the bid again, so it's a quick kind of market. One scare and it pops, otherwise it bleeds. Draw slipped to 1.011 cents, momentum's fading there, like a team settling for the point and the crowd getting bored. Mexico is still 0.88, 0.89 with healthy depth on both sides. So the favored trade is stable, but that 0.90 offer stack is the next real resistance. Big liquidity vacuum just opened. Mexico's bid depth collapsed while price barely budged at 0.89. 0.90. So one decent sell can knock this favorite back a notch. Draw's best bid is thin and weirdly up at 0.08, which tells you nobody wants to show size. Korea's draw just got hammered, 7-8 cents. Market's basically saying no, stoppage time chaos. And that's a big sentiment shift. Mexico holding 0.91, 0.92 with fatter bid depth is the tell. Buyers are defending the lead like a top club, killing the game off. Korea still prints 0.00. Mexico ticks up to show stirring momentums with the favorite, but the book behind it is still pretty skinny, so a surprise headline could cause a quick wobble. Draw keeps bleeding to 6-7 cents on almost no real bids. Korea's bid depth at $6 is basically an empty stadium. Korea's bid just vanished, zero depth, so that side's effectively untradeable unless someone steps in, and that's pure panic abandonment. Mexico slips back to 0.91, 0.92 with lighter bids, so the favorite's still ahead, but the defense is thinning. Draw ticking up to 8-9 cents on Mexico's now also show. Markets basically calling full time, but notice the bid depth is lighter again, so it's confidence without a ton of protection. The draw is stuck at 5-6 cents with almost no real bids, and Korea has literally no bid showing. Nobody wants that lottery ticket. This feels like late game time wasting. Mexico still priced like a near lock at 0.96 bid, but that wider 0.96, 0.98 spread screams liquidity's drying up, not fresh conviction. Draw and Korea are basically dead markets. Tiny bids, massive offers. So any late chaos would gap prices hard.
That's pure final whistle energy. Everyone's already halfway down the stairs, singing and hugging, because the result feels locked in stone. No one's paying for a miracle when the clock's bleeding out. It's all Mexico shirts piled on the ball, seeing it home.
Mexico's basically at the whistle. Now chopped your Joe bid with 0 asks and at $2.46 megabytes wall markets, saying game over and daring anyone to fade it. Draw has no bid and just a penny offer. Korea's still untradeable on the bid side, so liquidity's one way and any shock would be a straight gap move. Nothing's changed. Mexico's pinned at $0.99 with a monster bid stack and literally no one offering, so the market's locked in victory formation. Draw and Korea are still offer only at 0, 0, 1, and 0, 0, 0, which tells you nobody's stepping in front of this train. At this point, the only trade is praying for stoppage.